The Galactic Expeditionary Survey Corps prided itself on three things: meticulous planning, exhaustive safety protocols, and an unblemished record of bringing every scout home alive, if not particularly entertained. For 217 years, they'd mapped hostile planets, catalogued deadly fauna, and survived conditions that would make a black hole look inviting. Their secret? Simple. Don't take risks. Ever. Fill out the forms, follow the procedures, and if something looks dangerous, classify it from orbit and move on, which made the assignment of human expedition specialist Marcus Webb to survey Team Theta 9 something of a cosmic joke. Marcus had been slotted into the mission through what could only be described as bureaucratic malfunction meets interspecies affirmative action. The Survey Corps had quotas to meet, and humans, for all their alarming tendencies toward creative problem-solving and ignoring warning labels, were technically a spacefaring species. Someone in resource allocation had checked a box. That someone was probably fired by now, but the paperwork was processed, and Marcus was on the shuttle to Verdenia 7 before anyone with actual authority noticed. His team members were exactly what you'd expect from an organization allergic to excitement. Krell, the mission leader, belonged to the Vexthari species, a race of methodical, six-limbed beings whose idea of adventure was alphabetizing their equipment, manifest in two different languages. Then there was Ohms, a crystalline quartzid, whose people had evolved in caves and considered direct sunlight to be a borderline extreme sport. Pip, the junior scout, was a Flittic, essentially a 3-foot-tall bundle of nerves with wings, who treated every unexplored planet like it was personally plotting his demise. Rounding out the crew was then Dara, a Mulrathi, whose species had climbed to the top of their food chain through aggressive risk assessment and the invention of 17 different types of insurance. Marcus, by contrast, had packed a fishing rod in his personal effects. Not a regulation survival tool, an actual, recreational fishing rod. The mission was supposed to be routine. Verdenia 7 was flagged for agricultural potential, meaning it needed a team to confirm that the soil wouldn't dissolve colonists and the local wildlife wouldn't consider them a delicacy. 3 weeks of sample collection, data recording, and careful observation from the relative safety of their mobile base camp. The most dangerous thing on the itinerary was supposed to be Krell's nightly safety briefings. Then the cargo pod decided to have opinions about Verdanian swamp chemistry. The malfunction started small, a warning light during atmospheric entry that Krell dismissed with his customary 5-minute analysis of potential causes, probability matrices, and proper reporting procedures. By the time he'd finished explaining why they shouldn't panic, the cargo bay was making sounds that Marcus's grandmother would have described as angry mechanical demons. They set down in what the orbital surveys had optimistically labeled stable wetlands, which turned out to be cosmic bureaucrat speak for swamp that eats technology. The cargo pod, containing all their supplies, emergency rations, backup rations, emergency backup rations, and the rations they'd packed in case they lost the emergency backup rations, detached as planned. Then it sank into water that apparently had the pH level of industrial solvent and the temperament to match. Marcus watched their supplies dissolve with the calm of someone who'd once survived a camping trip where bears ate everything including the cooler. His teammates watched with the mounting horror of people whose species had eliminated natural selection so thoroughly they'd forgotten what hungry felt like. "This is a Category 5 survival scenario," Krell announced, manipulating his datapad with 4 hands, while his other 2 gesticulated at the bubbling swamp. "Protocol dictates we activate emergency beacon, establish perimeter, ration remaining supplies, and wait for extraction." "What remaining supplies?" Pip's wings buzzed frantically. The remaining supplies are currently being digested by hostile geological features. Then we ration our personal provisions and wait for the scheduled check-in. Krell's translator rendered his tone as aggressively reasonable, which was probably more diplomatic than the original Vexthari. The scheduled check-in is in 3 weeks. Then Dara said slowly, her gill slits flaring. Our personal provisions amount to 2 days of emergency nutrition paste each. A moment of silence followed, broken only by the gentle sounds of Verdenian wildlife doing whatever it was that Verdenian wildlife did when it wasn't being observed by increasingly desperate scouts. So we're going to die, Pip concluded. We're going to starve to death on a planet that literally ate our food before we could. The irony will be noted in our memorial services. Marcus cleared his throat. Has anyone actually looked around to see if there's food here? 4 alien faces turned toward him with expressions that translated roughly to polite confusion. Indigenous biomatter hasn't been cleared for consumption, Krell explained patiently. We'd need to collect samples, run them through the portable spectrometer that was in the cargo pod, cross-reference with our biological databases, file a consumption approval form, and wait for central analysis. Right, but counterpoint, we're hungry, and there's probably something edible in all this. Marcus gestured at the jungle around them, which was doing its best impression of aggressive fertility. I'm going to look around. Looking around is step 7 of the survival protocol. After establishing shelter, performing risk assessment, cataloging immediate threats. Marcus was already walking toward the river they'd landed near. Behind him, he heard Krell organizing an emergency committee meeting to discuss proper procedures for addressing his protocol violations. He loved his alien colleagues. He really did, but sometimes the galaxy's most advanced civilizations forgot that evolution had spent millions of years teaching species how not to die, and Earth had taken that lesson very seriously. The river was wide, clear, and absolutely teeming with aquatic life. Marcus knelt by the bank and watched shapes dart through the water. They looked sort of like fish. They moved like fish. His Earth-trained pattern recognition, honed by thousands of generations of ancestors who'd looked at things and thought, "Can I eat that?" was screaming that these were probably fish. He pulled out his multi-tool, the one piece of Earth technology that his species had contributed to galactic civilization and that other races found baffling. Why would you need 17 functions in one device? Just bring 17 devices. But Marcus's multi-tool had something the Survey Corps' specialized equipment lacked. It was designed by people who understood that sometimes you needed to improvise. Within an hour, he'd fashioned a serviceable spear from a straight branch and some sharpened metal from his multi-tool's housing. It wasn't pretty, but pretty didn't catch fish. Effective caught fish. He was waist-deep in the river, spear raised when his team found him. "What," Krell said slowly, "are you doing? Fishing?" Marcus struck, missed, reset his stance. "Pretty sure those are fish. Or fish-adjacent, fish-like. The point is they're protein. You're attempting to procure unprocessed xenofauna for consumption." Then Dara sounded like he'd announced plans to juggle antimatter. "That violates approximately 47 safety regulations." 49, Pip corrected miserably. I counted. "Look, we can either follow protocol and starve to death properly, or we can eat fish. I'm voting fish." Marcus struck again. This time the spear connected. He lifted his catch from the water, a silvery creature about 2 feet long that flopped with satisfying indignation. Ohms whose crystalline structure meant he experienced life on a different sensory spectrum than most, chimed thoughtfully. "The creature does emit energy signatures consistent with nutritional biomatter, However, it could contain toxic compounds, parasitic organisms, or molecular structures incompatible with our biology. Good news, Marcus said, trudging back to shore with his prize. I've got my multi-tool, which includes a basic biological scanner. It's meant for field identification, but it'll tell us if this thing is going to kill you. Probably. Pip looked ready to faint, which for a Flitwick involved dramatically more wing fluttering than seemed aerodynamically necessary. Marcus spent the next 20 minutes running scans while his team watched with the morbid fascination of people observing someone violate every principle they held dear. The multi-tool scanner was basic, but it did what it was designed to do: tell humans whether that interesting-looking mushroom was food or poison. He cross-referenced the fish's biological markers with the team's species profiles. All right, good news. This thing is protein, fat and minerals. Nothing in it that'll kill any of you specifically. Probably tastes pretty good too. How could you possibly know that? Krell demanded. Because Earth biology and biochemistry are weirdly compatible with like 60% of galactic species. It's why humans can eat in most alien restaurants without dying. Something about parallel evolution and carbon-based life. Marcus started gathering dry wood. Now, who wants to help me start a fire? The silence that followed suggested he'd just proposed ritual sacrifice. Fire. Then Dara's translator couldn't quite handle the high-pitched tone. Open combustion. On a planet with unknown atmospheric interactions. It's called cooking. Trust me, you don't want to eat raw fish. Well, some humans do, but we're not set up for sushi here. It took another 15 minutes of persuasion, but hunger was a powerful motivator. Marcus got his fire, built properly in a clearing with minimal combustible vegetation, and set about preparing his catch. He'd cleaned fish on camping trips since he was 8 years old. This one had slightly different anatomy, but the principle was the same: remove the bits you don't eat, cook the bits you do. The smell of cooking fish drifted through the jungle clearing. Marcus watched his teammates' reactions carefully. Krell's anterior nostrils flared. Pip drifted closer despite himself. Even Ohm's crystalline structure seemed to orient toward the fire. That aroma is triggering involuntary neurological responses, then Dara admitted. My species evolved near coastal regions. This smell pattern resembles. He trailed off, looking confused by his own reaction. Food, Marcus supplied. It smells like food, because it is food. He used his multi-tool to portion out pieces onto cleaned rocks, serving as improvised plates. All right, who's brave enough to try some? Another silence. Then Krell stepped forward with the air of someone accepting a noble sacrifice. I am mission leader. If this causes adverse effects, better I experience them first. He picked up a piece of the cooked fish with 2 of his hands, examined it with the thoroughness of a bomb disposal technician, and took a small bite. The change in his expression was immediate and profound. His eye stalks straightened. His mandibles clicked in a pattern Marcus's translator rendered as mild surprise transitioning to confused pleasure. Krell took another bite. This is actually acceptable. More than acceptable. This is good? That was all the endorsement the others needed. Pip dove at the food with the enthusiasm of someone who just remembered he was starving. Then Dara took a more measured approach, but was soon eating with focused determination. Even Ohms, who absorbed nutrients through chemical osmosis, managed to extract sustenance from his portion in a way that looked bizarrely satisfied. Marcus allowed himself a small grin. Welcome to human survival strategy. Find food, eat food, don't die. This protocol, Krell said around a mouthful of fish, is not in any of our manuals. That's because you folks have never had to survive without the manuals. We didn't have the luxury. Over the next few days, Marcus's fishing operation evolved from survival necessity to something resembling a proper food production system. He taught himself the river's patterns, identified which fish species were most plentiful, and constructed better tools from jungle materials and spare parts. A proper fishing spear with a barbed head, a smoking rack for preserving catches, a cleaning station away from the camp to avoid attracting predators. His alien teammates, initially useless at practical survival tasks, slowly found their roles. Pip's aerial perspective made him excellent at spotting fish in the river. Dendara's analytical mind turned toward identifying edible plants to supplement their diet. Krell organized everything with the same meticulous attention he brought to safety briefings, creating rotations and schedules. Ohms discovered he could purify water through his crystalline structure, solving that particular survival need entirely. By day 6, they'd transitioned from desperate survival to surprisingly functional camp life. By day 8, Marcus had started joking about opening a restaurant. "You know what this place needs?" He arranged several different fish species on their makeshift prep surface. "A menu. Customers love having options. We are stranded scouts, not customers," Krell pointed out. But he was already pulling out his datapad. However, proper organization would improve meal efficiency. Within hours, they had an actual menu. Krell couldn't help himself. The fish species got names: river runners, silver darters, the particularly ugly bottom feeders Marcus called mud bricks. Different preparation methods were listed: grilled, smoked, steamed in leaves. Pip contributed a rating system based on flavor profiles. Dendara calculated nutritional values. "Today's special," Marcus announced during their evening meal, "is smoked silver darters with wild tubers, and whatever those purple leaves are that Dendara says won't kill us. They're called Verdenian sage analogues." Dendara corrected primly, "and they contain flavor compounds similar to herbs from 17 different homeworlds. I've documented everything." "Right. Smoked fish with purple herb things. Who wants some?" Pip raised a wing. "I'll have the grilled mud bricks. Extra crispy. Coming right up." Krell, the usual. "River runners, steamed with the yellow fungi on the side." The mission leader didn't even look up from his datapad where he was, honest to whatever gods were listening, maintaining a log of their meals. "And before you ask, yes, I am documenting this. When we return, the Survey Corps will want a complete nutritional analysis of our survival methods." Marcus flipped fish with a flat stone serving as a spatula. "You're writing a report about my cooking." "I am writing a comprehensive documentation of unprecedented survival resource utilization in a Category 5 scenario. Your cooking is merely the primary case study. I'm putting that on my resume. Primary case study in unprecedented survival resource utilization. Sounds way better than caught fish." The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on any of them. They were stranded scouts who'd lost everything, stuck on an uncharted planet, eating whatever the local river provided. By all rights, they should have been miserable, terrified, counting down the days until rescue. Instead, Pip was arguing with Dendara about whether the mud bricks tasted better grilled or smoked. Ohms was arranging serving stones in aesthetically pleasing patterns. Krell was creating a database of flavor profiles cross-referenced with species preferences. They'd accidentally created a functioning restaurant in the middle of a jungle on an alien planet, and everyone was taking it seriously. On day 12, everything changed again. The sound of engines cut through the jungle canopy. Marcus looked up from his fishing to see a Survey Corps shuttle descending toward their camp. Not their scheduled rescue, someone else. The shuttle landed in the clearing they'd expanded for their smoking racks. A ramp extended, and out walked Commander Fish, a Mulrathi officer Marcus recognized from headquarters briefings. Her expression suggested she expected to find corpses, or at least signs of tragic suffering. Instead, she found Krell maintaining a fire, Pip arranging fish on a smoking rack, and Dendara consulting a datapad full of recipes. Team Theta 9, Fish said slowly, "We received your emergency beacon and came to investigate. Your status report indicates total supply loss," and she trailed off as Marcus emerged from the river carrying 3 large fish on a handmade stringer. "Oh hey, visitors," Marcus waved. "We've got plenty if you're hungry. Just caught some river runners. They're great grilled, but Krell insists the smoked version has a better texture profile." "The smoked version does have a better texture profile," Krell called out. "I've documented it extensively." Fish looked at her datapad, then at the camp, then back at her datapad. "Your emergency status is listed as critical, Category 5 survival scenario. Total resource depletion." "Oh, we sorted that out." Marcus started cleaning his catch. "Turns out the river's full of fish. The forest has edible plants. It's basically a buffet if you know where to look. You've been consuming unvetted xenofauna for nearly 2 weeks." Fish's gill slits flared in alarm. "We vetted it," Dendara interjected. "I have comprehensive biological analyses, nutritional breakdowns, and safety profiles for 14 different food sources. Would you like to review my documentation?" Fish seemed to be experiencing some kind of cultural whiplash. "That's not, you can't just." "Want some lunch?" Marcus offered. "We've got this whole operation running now. Take a seat. Check out the menu." "The menu?" Pip fluttered over. Datapad extended. "We have several options. I personally recommend the grilled silver darters, but the mud bricks have been very popular lately." Commander Vez took the datapad with the expression of someone whose reality was being actively rewritten. She scrolled through what was indeed a comprehensive menu complete with descriptions, nutritional information, and customer ratings. "Who," she said carefully, "are the customers?" "Well, us." Marcus started up the fire. "But Krell insists we rate everything for the database. Very thorough, our Krell. It's important to maintain proper documentation standards even in survival situations," Krell added, utterly sincere. Vase sat down heavily on a log that had been positioned suspiciously like restaurant seating. Her crew emerged from the shuttle, drawn by curiosity and the smell of cooking fish. Soon Marcus was taking orders, Pip was managing the fire, and then Dara was explaining his culinary discoveries to increasingly bewildered Survey Corps personnel. "The key," Marcus explained, while preparing food for 8 increasingly confused aliens, "is understanding that survival isn't about protocol, it's about adapting. Earth had thousands of different environments, and humans learned to eat in all of them. We got good at looking at new things and figuring out if they were food. But the safety regulations," one of Vase's crew protested weakly, "accepting a portion of grilled fish anyway, are written by people who've never been hungry." Marcus wasn't trying to be harsh, just factual. "Look, I get it. Your species eliminated scarcity so long ago that you forgot the skills. That's great, honestly. But sometimes you need someone who remembers that finding dinner is the most basic survival skill there is." The visiting crew stayed for 2 hours. They ate fish, sampled the various preparations, and listened to Krell's exhaustive documentation of the experience. By the time they left, 3 of them had asked for copies of the recipes. When the scheduled rescue ship arrived on day 21, Team Theta 9 was in no particular hurry to leave. "We should probably pack up," Marcus said without much enthusiasm. He was smoking a final batch of fish for the journey back. "I suppose," Pip agreed. though he was carefully documenting the smoking technique for future reference. The rescue captain, a no-nonsense Vexthari named Kells, walked through their camp with increasing confusion. His team had expected to perform an emergency extraction of starving, desperate scouts. Instead, they found a functional base camp with food storage, cooking facilities, and what appeared to be a comprehensive culinary operation. "Your report indicated critical resource depletion," Kells said to Krell. "It did. We depleted all our standard resources on day one. Yet you appear to have gained weight." "The human taught us to fish," Krell explained, as if this clarified everything, "and identify edible plants, and construct preservation facilities. It's all in my report. Very thorough documentation. I think you'll find it educational." Kells stared at Marcus, who was wrapping smoked fish for transport. "You sustained the entire team on indigenous resources." "I mean, yeah, there was food here. We ate it. Pretty standard survival stuff, for 3 weeks. Could have gone longer, honestly. We were just getting into advanced techniques." Marcus gestured at his smoking rack with something like pride. "Another month and I could have had proper preservation down, maybe experimented with fermentation." The flight back to the orbital station was quiet. Marcus's teammates were already nostalgic for their jungle restaurant. Marcus himself was thinking about his grandmother, who'd taught him to fish on a lake back on Earth. She'd said you could tell a lot about a person by how they handled being hungry. Turned out you could tell a lot about civilizations too. The incident report became something of a legend at Survey Corps headquarters. Team Theta 9's survival story spread through channels official and unofficial. The human who'd turned a Category 5 survival scenario into a functioning food service operation. The scouts who'd rated their survival meals like restaurant critics. Marcus received 2 official notifications. The first was a formal citation for protocol violations, safety regulation breaches, and unauthorized consumption of unvetted biological materials. It went into his permanent record with stern language about proper procedures. The second was a commendation for innovative resource utilization, crew survival, and exceptional problem-solving under pressure. It came with a bonus and a note suggesting that perhaps Survey Corps protocols could benefit from alternative survival perspectives. The real surprise came 3 weeks later, when Marcus received messages from Krell, then Dara, and Pip. All 3 had submitted transfer requests to Xenocultural Food Analysis departments, newly created positions that definitely hadn't existed before. Their applications cited their extensive field experience in indigenous resource utilization and comprehensive documentation of nutritional adaptation strategies. In other words, they wanted to study alien food because they'd learned that eating was more interesting than starving. Marcus laughed until his sides hurt, then sent them all the same response. "Told you the fish were good." The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, it turned out, had spent so long optimizing survival that they'd forgotten what it actually meant. They'd built systems and protocols and safety nets so comprehensive that the basic skills had atrophied. It took a human, a species that had clawed its way up from subsistence living, to remind them of the most fundamental truth. Sometimes survival wasn't about following the manual. Sometimes it was just about finding dinner, cooking it properly, and maybe rating the results for posterity. Earth had taught its children well, when everything goes wrong, look around and ask the most important question, can I eat that? Usually the answer was yes. You just had to be brave enough or hungry enough to try. And if you were very lucky, you might even enjoy it. Maybe even enough to open a restaurant, even if your dining room was a jungle clearing and your customers were aliens who'd never gone hungry a day in their lives. The Survey Corps updated their training protocols 6 months later. New recruits now received basic survival skills instruction, including resource identification and improvised food preparation. The course was officially titled Alternative Resource Utilization in Emergency Scenarios. Everyone called it the fishing class, and somewhere on Verdenia 7, a river full of fish continued its existence, blissfully unaware that it had become the most documented food source in Survey Corps history, complete with preparation methods, nutritional analysis, and customer ratings. 4.5 stars would survive again.